welcome to another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevent, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Faraz. Faraz, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Mr. Greg. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Mr. Greg, I have to remember that. Hopefully we get that introduction on a lot more of these. So yeah, Faraz, if you could tell us a bit about, who you are and what you do here at Website Depot.
Well, guys, my name is Faraz Abbasi, and I started off at Website Depot as an account manager, but eventually transitioned into a social media manager. And now I have 4 people in my team that I manage. And then I also do account management on the side and a little bit of other stuff here and there. So it's like a mixed bag,
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely it is. And I'm always struck by whenever I have someone on here from the Website Depot team, just like how many different things everyone does. I mean, no one just does any one thing. So I guess you could I even just for my own information, because I guess I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, what is, like, when you say an account manager, I mean, what is that you came in as
So basically I came in as an account manager. That's what I got hired in as. Previously, my background was in making websites and just designing stuff. But this was my first experiment, managing accounts specifically and managing customers. So basically I got hired on to do account management for about, I think, 20 to 25 accounts, which is basically you take, let's just talk about one account, for example. You get one account, you have to make sure the websites are optimized properly each month. They're getting their social media posts, they're getting their blog posting, that their website is running efficiently. You do a speed test and you make sure it's mobile friendly. But that's just like the basics of account management. So you have to go through all individual accounts and make sure that your manager's checklist is complete. And the manager's checklist includes all those things that I just mentioned right now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, I started off just by blog posting and whatnot, and this transitioned me into account management once I learned all the aspects of it. Okay. And now I manage, I think, about 35 accounts. So each month I go through all 35 accounts, the checklist, to see if everything was done correctly on my teammates' part, on my part, on the development's part, just to make sure that the account is running smoothly and the customer is getting what they're paying for.
Okay, I see. So when a company signs up with Website Depot, an account manager like you is like, hey, you're assigned to this account, and then you're basically, for lack of a better phrase, like a backstop. Like, you're there to make sure, like, okay, everyone did the thing they were supposed to do. You go through it and check and say, okay, everything here has been absolutely taken care of.
Yeah. So there's the account executive, which they're the ones who communicate with the people, our clients, I guess. And then they relay that information to me, the account manager, and then I take care of the back end of things, basically. So there's one person that communicates with the client, and then there's one person that takes care of everything in the back end. But as an account manager, I kind of find myself talking to clients more and more often as my time goes on Website Depot. At first, I was kind of scared to talk to clients.
Certainly.
Eventually you learn what they like, what they don't like, and then you start asking them questions yourself, like, hey, is this banner working for you? Do you like this design? Are these social media posts okay? Because at one point it gets kind of exhausting, having to go through the account executive. Be like, hey, can you please ask the client that if they're going to like this or not? That could be like a 1 or 2 day process. So as time goes on, I'm getting more and more comfortable with just speaking to the client myself, which is, I think, a really good skill to learn. Communication.
Oh, yeah. And also, too, I'm sorry, I mean to talk over you, but I mean, I also mentioned that's the kind of thing that's better for the client. I mean, that makes service all that much more expedited, all that much faster. And okay, so you did this account managing, and now you're managing the social media team. I mean, I imagine the layperson listening to that just thinks like, oh, this guy posts a lot on Facebook or something, but I imagine it's way more involved than that.
Yeah, this transition just kind of happened out of nowhere. Website Depot is such a tight collective of individuals. It's a small company, but we do big things. But we try to keep our team small and our team composed of the best. And instead of hiring on people from outside, hey, can you come hire on to do this, that? I think they promote people within the company. That's what their goal is, and that's what happened with me, basically. So I started off as account manager, and I think I did pretty good work, for my first year.
I would imagine.
One day it was just like, hey, it's kind of a question, also just letting me know that you're going to be taking over this, but also hey, do you want to do this? So my transition happened to the social media manager about a month or 2 ago.
Okay.
And then, so for this is basically I manage 4 people under me, and those 4 people take care of all the social media posting of our clients. I think we have I think like 60 or 70 clients, and most of them get social media posting. Some get 5 posts a week, some get 1 post a week, depending on their package. And so my job is basically maintaining the spreadsheet, assigning the specific accounts who's going to be doing social media posting for which client, and then at the end of every week, making sure that my team had those posts complete. And I'm also part of that too. You know, I'm not just like making them do work. I also have 10 or 12 social media accounts that I'm doing. Because I think like from my previous experiences at other companies, like managers usually just like, it's like a whip to crack the whip and they just like make all their employees do the work. I never saw that as like a good thing. So I like
I've never even heard of that working. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm part of the team. I'm also doing the same work as them. So it's not just like I'm just watching what they're doing. So I really think that's like a valuable way of managing. It's like a good skill.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it also that style of management, I think, gets back to what you said earlier in the answer about how, Website Depot does tend to promote from within and people that do understand the ins and outs of the tight collective. Thus, that leads to folks that by the time they do ascend to a management position, very much have none of that inclination of the cracking of the whip motion that you had made or anything like that, anything that certainly wasn't willing to work down in the trenches with the workers themselves. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So is this what you went to school with? You grew up planning on what you were going to do? I mean, how'd you end up here there for us?
Wow. So yeah, I mean, when I was a child, I wanted to be a pilot when I grew up.
Okay.
And I got older, and basically in high school, I made some decisions that weren't that great, which led me to eventually dropping out of high school at like beginning of senior year. So I got my GED really quickly, which was, that's a whole nother topic. That's like a little cheat code because I got my GED before my peers in high school even graduated. Because you have to you can get your GED if you're 6 months away from your 18th birthday. So I got mine exactly 6 months away from my 18th birthday. And I was able to start community college before my classmates even graduated. So all in all, this really worked out in my favor. So when I started community college, the pilot stuff seemed kind of like way out of the question. So I was like, okay, the next best thing I wanted to do was aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering. And so I started, how community college, did you go to community college or?
I did not, but I certainly know plenty of people that do. And a dear friend of mine has been a flight attendant for more than 30 years. So, I mean, I also know how much is involved in being a pilot. So yeah, I could totally see and decide not to do that. That's a rough go. Like,
yeah, so with community colleges, is basically, you go there and you get your general education done before you transfer to a UC or a Cal State. And basically to transfer into the aerospace engineering program at Cal Poly Pomona, you need to take all the math, basically from basic algebra all the way to differential calculus and all that stuff. And I was sorry, notification popped up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's why we have editing. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to a point where I reached, I think, trigonometry or pre-calculus, where stuff just started not making sense anymore. And I was like, I
believe that. Yeah.
Maybe like this is not a right path because I took pre-calculus like 2 or 3 times and I eventually got a C the 3rd time. So I think that's like a notification, like maybe you shouldn't go on this path because it's only going to get harder and harder and harder.
Okay.
So then basically I made the decision that once I graduated out of community college with my general ed and then biological and physical sciences, my associates, I took a little bit of a break. And then that break lasted about like 2 to 3 years. Where I got a job at Disneyland. I moved out here from San Bernardino to Long Beach, and basically kind of got my life back on track.
Great.
But throughout my whole life, I had this hobby of designing, graphic design, video editing, and whatnot. I never thought of making that a career. I always just, did it as a passion since I was like, I think like 11 years old, because my mom put me in my church's media team since I was like 11. So I learned all those skills from a very, very young age. So by the time I was done with community college, I think it was like age 21 or 22, I had like these really, really good skills at Photoshop, editing, 3D modeling, all this design stuff and whatnot. So after I took my break after community college, I felt the urge to go back to school, university. And it was like, I had to decide what's my next step. So what I'm good at is the media and design world, but I don't want to go in the field of that because I don't want to make that my job where I'm going to eventually end up hating it, spending all day
Oh, yeah.
Photoshop and whatnot, and just like staring at a screen and designing all day. So basically, the hobby would turn into like something I hate because
Right,
I'm
right. You
being
got to
forced to
avoid
do it.
that. Yeah.
So I found this major at Cal State Dominguez Hills, advertising and public relations, which
Mm,
I could use my skill set of design, but I could also have a skill set of like, public relations and advertising and whatever goes on in there. Because eventually my
okay.
life goal is to become a creative director at an ad agency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think my skill set of media and design combined with the knowledge of like the advertising world is eventually going to lead me to a creative director. So I got my degree in ad and
Hmm.
public relations. I graduated in May of 2020, right in the middle of
Okay.
the pandemic. Didn't even get to
Oh,
walk across the
geez.
stage.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was just like because I didn't get to walk across the stage. It was just like, why did I get in all this debt? You know, even though I get it, I have a degree, but at the same time,
Right.
you want to walk across the stage. That's just
That,
God.
that's a real rite of passage, like life
Yeah, yeah.
kind of thing. I mean, that's a true life highlight that you were denied and shouldn't have
I mean, especially because like I didn't do it at high school graduation either. You know, I didn't get to walk across that stage. So
been.
this was just like the most grand thing that was ever going to happen. But it didn't. I guess things happen for a reason. But so I graduated, and I was working at a ad agency for a little bit.
Okay.
And basically during the whole pandemic, I was working there for I think 2.5 to 3 years. And eventually, because of the pandemic, got let go. And then
Hmm.
from there, I spent like 6 months off, you know, just relaxing. I guess, you know, as an adult, it's hard to find time to relax.
Certainly.
So after that 6 months, I landed at Website Depot. But basically, I
Okay.
was like, you know, time to get a job again.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, here I am. So right now, I'm just like, you know, learning a lot more than I've ever learned in my life at this job because now I have to do like managing websites, managing a
Right.
team, just like, or it's just all in one kind of package. So here I am. And I want to spend a couple more years at this company. You know, like my thing
Mhm.
is loyalty to a company when I work there.
Certainly.
You know, I don't really mind like whatever pay I get as long
Mhm.
as like the company treats me good. I'm gonna be loyal to you.
Certainly.
'Cause I believe in like long-term employment. So eventually, you know, I do want to like maybe work at an ad agency as a creative director. But the
Mhm.
bigger goal than that is own my own ad agency and
Mm.
be just like, you know, the creative mastermind of my own ad agency. And I only want like 5 or 6 employees. You know, I learned that from Website Depot. Keep the team small, and your company is going to be good. So that's a big picture right there. That's the end goal.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You know, and that I know that when you lay that out, that seems very much like what a great goal to shoot for. That kind of thing where you can create an ad agency where you really will have, you know, a control with people that you trust.
Yeah.
It's and how good it is to have an ambition that isn't, you know, so enormous. Like it seems like it's ambitious. Is it a great goal? Is it a grand goal? Absolutely, but it's also one that seems feasible. That seems, you know, within this dimension. I was struck by. I mean, it just, you know, I was so glad that you took it to where your eventual end goal was. Is it because the only thing you said that when you spoke that I bumped against was, you know, that this was supposed to, I forget exactly how you put it now, but something about, you know, the walk across the stage, that this was supposed to be as great as it gets or as grand as it gets. I mean, and that could be, but if that were to be the case, then that is not the life best lived either. I mean, it sounds like you're where you're headed and what you're certainly driving towards is a far greater eventual accomplishment than even that walk across
Yeah,
that
I think everything
stage.
happens for a reason for sure. You know, like I feel like there's
Mhm.
gonna be one point I reach in my life, like you're saying, where I'm gonna look back and be like, maybe walking across that stage wasn't that big of a deal, you know? Like what I'm doing right now is an actual big deal. And it's just gonna feel silly looking back and be like, wow, I was being sad over stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I think it's also, but I also think just, I mean, again, just talking to you here for a couple of minutes, it also sounds like you're using that, you know, and it is a tragedy. There's no other word for it, but you're using that in the right way. It's not like you're using that to beat yourself up or to hold back or anything like that. It's driving you towards not only doing a good job right now, but to be very conscious of, hey, where it is that you want to go, what it is that you want to do. You know, it seems like you're harnessing that in the best way possible.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, there's the career goal, but like
Mhm.
my mental goal is basically also to like, you know, one day be a really influential person in the ad world. And
Okay.
what I want my main thing to be is like, I was a high school dropout. The connotation for high school dropouts is that they're going to be failures and whatnot. And I want that perspective to completely change on people like me. We all drop off for different reasons. That doesn't mean we're going to end up being failures. So
Certainly.
I definitely going to write my autobiography one day, and definitely going to make that a big thing. Like, hey, those years, ages 15, 16, 17, whatever mistakes you make don't really matter. If you're a high school dropout, you could just be like me too, just work hard to get to your place.
Oh, absolutely. And no, that's such a good idea. And that's the kind of message that, like, at any time in any medium is always worth being said, is always worth being presented. I mean, it's, it's rare that we go, even 15 minutes in one of these podcasts without the concept of mental health and motivation coming up. And we certainly reached the 15-minute mark here. I mean, I've just been struck by, as you've been speaking about, how much at so many different times in your story, I don't know if this is an incorrect interpretation on my part, but just how you either committed or recommitted to hard work, working hard, some other thing. And I always like to, at some point during one of these podcasts, have something to say, hey, if you're listening to this or you're watching this, here's something that when this podcast ends for you and you turn it off, there's something that you can take with you to improve your day, what you're doing right now, and you, just as I'm talking to you, Faraz, and also interacting with you at the company, it's at Website Depot itself, you're a person that, again, can work hard and does recommit to that. Is there something that, is there something you can say to folks about, how it is you recommit or focus, or something that other people can do, or some little bit of advice like that?
So you're just talking about like refocusing on your goals, basically,
or just anything. Yeah, I think I didn't mean to make it so specific, and I wish I'd phrased it differently now. Just something that, a bit of advice or a tip for folks that maybe they don't necessarily know that you certainly speak from a position of authority in multiple ways on this, and it's something that could help them. So
I think my number one motto right now these days is ignore the temporary pleasures in life. So basically, let's say like I'm making a website right now, or I'm working on a website, and I'm just gonna skip this little portion of it and come back to it later. It's instead of just like satisfying myself right now and just finishing my work and leaving and just doing that stuff later, just finish it now and enjoy your free time more later. But it's hard to kind of relate it to like websites and stuff like that, but it's just in life in general, like just ignore the temporary pleasures, because the long pleasures are the one that are much more rewarding and they pay off and whatnot.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and that seems like a good way to go about working anything.
Don't take shortcuts in anything you do, like, because eventually it's going to catch up to you and it's just going to be like, oh man, now I have to do this. Maybe I could have just done this a long time ago, instead of waiting to make these social media posts right at the end of the month. I could have just been doing it throughout the month and not stressing myself out right now. And I think that's really hard for humans to understand. We're just so as like the years pass by, 2022, 2023, we're just becoming more and more obsessed with just temporary pleasure. And I think we need to like catch ourselves before we get way too comfortable with that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and just that doing, or even if it's not necessarily in the context of a work that you can do right now, or even if it's just a skill you can develop, a growth you can take it to try and get through, it's something that more difficult to deal with it today versus tomorrow. In many contexts, that's absolutely something that folks can take and learn from.
But also, get your day started really early too. Wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning and just, you have like a 2 or 3 hour advantage over people that wake up like at 8 or 9 or 10, and you just get to live life for 3 more hours than other people do. I think that's very, very important. In those 3 hours, if you're not working, you could, it sounds really generic, read a book or just do something productive, make them take a walk, maybe exercise and stuff like that. But use that 3 hour advantage that you have over like 80% of the world, and use it to your advantage and make yourself a better person.
It's so funny you say that. The last podcast I did, there was we had a mental health expert on, and she said almost word for word the exact same thing. It was almost exactly, wake up. I believe her phrase was wake up before the sun. But if you're doing that at 5 a.m., you're absolutely right on that as well. That's certainly keeping in track with that. That is good
I
advice.
learned that from Steve Harvey. We went to go see Family Feud live, and
Okay.
after Family, the taping finishes,
Mhm.
he just gives you a motivational speech, and he told
Oh.
us like just stuff like about sleeping, just the amount you need. Sleeping
Mhm.
for 8 hours is for kids, babies that are developing. An adult actually needs 6 hours of sleep, but
Mhm.
he only gets 4 hours of sleep. He sleeps from 12 to 4 a.m. And
Oh,
look at his net worth. Look at how much he's accomplished.
certainly.
And
Mhm.
I just took that to my heart. I was like, wow, this like old man is giving me like diamonds, basically. This advice. It's just worth so much. I'm just trying to implement that in my life as much as I can.
No, that makes sense. That certainly the man's been a legend for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, so you were speaking on a bit ago. You were speaking about you very rightly didn't want the hobbies that you had to become work that you would eventually dread, and then you very adeptly sidestep that. Is what I guess, what are the hobbies that you're into now? Is it still the same things or not related to what it is you
Okay.
work on? Or
Basically, you do a hobby for an extended period of time. You just kind of become
okay,
like that's like your second knowledge. You already know what to do. So that used to be design, Photoshop, editing, just the whole Adobe Creative Suite. So at this
okay,
point, I don't even consider that a hobby. It's just something I know. It's just like my human knowledge. But
mhm,
like things that I do actively almost every day or every weekend is I create music and I
mm,
climb mountains, but more make music than climb mountains because right now,
okay,
like, it's the mountains are seasonal. I can't do too many snowy or icy mountains. But
makes
music
sense.
production has been like, a long, long passion of mine. And it's just also one of those things that, like I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm actually very, very good at what I do. But
Hey,
I don't really tend to send my stuff to record labels and stuff like that because
okay,
again, it's just one of those things where I don't want to make it a job where I'm being forced to do this for money and whatnot. So
okay.
that's just one of those things I do on the side as my stress reliever at the end of almost every day, basically.
That's
Especially when my
great.
girlfriend isn't home, I have some time to just like spend in the studio for like 4 or 5 hours and just like free my mind. That's my alone time.
That's great. No, and
Yeah,
that's wonderful that that gives you that fulfillment doing
yeah.
that. I mean, it's I don't know. I was just struck by in the conversation we have today about the hobbies that you do and the things that you've done, and it seems like it belies a very like meticulous nature. I mean, it's even the creative aspects of it. I mean, to make music, to make your own music. I mean, hell, every as far as you can get from a musical artist. But I mean, I played the cello from I think the third grade through I graduated high school, and I understand that there's, when not that I was any good at it, but the people that did, there was like a practice to it. There was a real going on and on to do it. And it seems like that kind of ties back into some of the stuff maybe you do here. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I also like you played the clarinet in high school. I
hey,
from I think like fourth grade till 10th grade, I played the clarinet. I don't play it
okay,
anymore, but
right.
ever since then I transitioned into the electronic side of stuff, basically
Cool.
synthesizers and like machines and whatnot. No more
Nice.
wind instruments and stuff like that. But
Okay.
yeah, so I made that transition, and that's the kind of stuff I do now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, do you provide the vocals on it then, or is it just like, or
Well,
is
my
it just instrumental, or what do you do
well, my
there? Like,
first album, I collaborated with a lot of artists to do vocals. But basically, there's this
cool.
website you go on, and people just upload their own vocals, and you basically find something that matches your beats per minute, and
Uh-huh.
you message them and be like, "Hey, I can work with your vocals on my track. Like, do you want to do something?" And usually, most of the time, they agree. So I had a couple of
Yeah.
vocalists from like one from Sweden, one from New York, and it's just basically like an online collaboration system. And I did some of my own stuff too. And
Nice.
that crafted my first album, which took like 8 years to make.
Wow.
And I released that in 2019. And now I'm working on my second one, which will
Uh-huh.
probably, it was supposed to come out last year in March, but I just felt wrong to release something in the middle of like the weird times we were living in.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I think it was a good thing because I found a lot of like stuff that needed to be worked on. So I've been working on it more and more and more. And I think by the end of this year, maybe December, I'll release the second one.
Oh, it's
And
so interesting.
I'll send you a link to check it out. You know,
No,
it's
absolutely, you should, and we should absolutely. I hope in the editing of these that those, if you're comfortable with it, the links get put up. I mean, that's
yeah,
a big part of the reason why we do this. I mean, I absolutely am struck by, you talk about, you don't want this to be a job, and yet look at how more proficient you're being. I mean, it's the first one took you 8 years, and the second one took maybe what, a year and a half, 2 years, and
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. You know, usually I
Eh,
can make songs in basically like 1 or 2 days, like full complete songs. You
okay.
can make that. That's basically building the skeleton of a song, and then you have to spend a couple
Mm,
of weeks, you know, making tweaks, making sure everything sounds correct, making sure everything's equalized correctly,
mhm.
and so yeah, basically making the skeleton of a song 1 or 2 days, and then spending 2 or 3 weeks per song, like making minor adjustments here and there and whatnot. Yeah, as time goes on, I get faster and faster. Just like
Okay.
on my website depot, I learn things and I do them every day, and I just get faster and faster at what I do. Like making social media posts, for example. You know, I've kind of become like an
Right.
expert at making GIFs or GIFs. What is it, GIF or
I,
GIF?
I feel like every time I have a guest on, they say it in a different way, and every time I agree. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
however you say it, I think that's correct.
Yeah. At first, it was like difficult, you know, like coming up with concepts and whatnot of
Mhm.
what kind of content to make for these customers. And eventually, over time, you make so much of it every month, you do more and more research. Eventually, it
Mhm.
becomes like a science. So now I can make like 5 or 6 social media posts for the whole month for a client in like 30 minutes, you know. And as time goes on, it becomes faster and faster and faster because I'm getting to understand what the client is. Like for example, one of my favorite clients that I worked with is a CS of MD West. You know that client, right? Corvettes.
Oh yes, no, I know. Yeah, I've written for Brian for years now at this point because my old man had a 1966 Corvette Stingray coupe. So
Mhm.
I, of the writers website Depot's brought in, I'm the only one that has any idea what it is that Brian is talking about.
Yeah, Brian's my guy. Like, you know, that's
Mhm.
like my favorite account. I'm the most passionate about that account because like I see results of my work basically. You know, I create
Mm.
newsletters from him once a month. And
Okay.
when I send out those newsletters, I have access to see how much revenue my newsletters make for his website. And
Uh-huh.
like last month, I created a newsletter for him, which generated, I think, $1,700 in revenue.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
And you know, when you see the result of reactions at stuff on
Hmm.
Website Depot, it just motivates you to do better and better and better. And then over
Certainly.
time, like the Corvette has also become my favorite car. Like when I first
Oh, yeah.
started, it wasn't, I didn't really care about them too much, but now like after a year of just like reading your blogs, creating social media posts, and just talking to him, and he's so meticulous about everything that I post.
Hmm.
And like, for example, like I'm posting a part from 1972,
Hmm.
and then I also put a picture of the same model car at the bottom. And one time I put a 1975 instead of 1972, it corrects me right away. And
Oh,
so
yeah. No, Brian's gonna be on top of that. Yeah.
over the year, you know, it's just I've become better and better and more knowledgeable. And now it's like my goal in life is to get myself like a 1971 Corvette. Like it's just so nice, you know. I can just keep getting constantly exposed to the knowledge of Corvettes. I'm just like, oh, I guess I like these too, I guess.
Oh yeah, and it's also, and he's such an expert in what he
Yeah.
does. I mean, with that is genuinely revolutionary. That idea, if you take the classic blueprints and you build them with modern tooling and modern technology, that really is how every classic everything beyond even Corvettes should be done. But yeah, but I think yeah, I mean, that just, like I said, that just strikes me as part of the overall theme, just talking to you today about how it's when you pick something up, you pick it up quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
and you tend to figure out what you like. I mean, I was just thinking about, and you sort of touched on it, was talking about how you started writing the songs and it took you a longer time to get into it, and you tied it back into the social media posts, and it's
Yeah.
and I was struck by how with both it seemed like over time, it wasn't just a question of you like working harder and doing it, but rather you having this really clear understanding of A, what you wanted it to be, and two, knowing when it's that good and not continuing to work on it past that. Because I think that's as much a danger with social media posts and artistic endeavors as anything else, too, right?
Like if you spend too much time on something, like more than you need to, it's gonna end up turning out to be crap. Like if you overwork something, like no one's gonna like the result of that. I think if there's like a certain point that like an artist or a creative, you know, there's some certain thing in your brain that you just have to like have this wired in you that when you reach a certain point, just stop, you know, stop trying to nitpick here and there, because not only is that gonna end up like spending more time than you need to, the end result is not gonna be good either. So for example,
Right.
like, if I'm making a post for a social media client, I'm just spending like hours and hours of research, and I just make up something that's like super like jumbled. It doesn't make any sense, and the client doesn't like it. Um, Not only is my time wasted, also the company's time is wasted at the end of the day too. So and the client doesn't like it, so it's just three negatives, and you just gotta learn when to know to stop and just understand that whatever you made is good to go.
No, I think that that's such an important, thing that needs to be said, especially to people that do have a predilection towards working hard. I mean, the
Yeah.
ones that do work hard, the ones that do wake up before the sun, the ones that do hustle, do need to be reminded of that from time to time. It's like, hey, you got to step away from this sometimes too. Like,
It's like the same thing with like working out, for example. You go to the gym, you
that's right.
bodybuild, you're lifting weights, but if you do too much, at one point you're gonna be doing the counteractive. Your muscles are not gonna be building.
Right.
They're gonna be like getting destroyed, and you're gonna be working so hard and you're not gonna see any results. So you're just gonna feel like crap at the end of the day. That applies to a lot of things in life if you think about it. Just don't overwork yourself. You know.
Certainly. No, that's absolutely true. Well, like I said, I always learn a lot on these podcasts, and today is certainly no exception. Those are all the questions I had for you. Is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't touched on, or something just that you would like to say for us?
Um, I think
It's
we
okay if you
covered a lot
don't.
of stuff. We covered a lot of stuff. I also just want to give a major shout out to Website Depot. This company helped me at a time that I did need help, of employment, and it just ended up working out so properly. Like I started out not knowing much, and now it's just I have such a vast knowledge of how all these things work, and we also have a great, owner who basically communicates with all of us. That's
Certainly.
one thing that most companies don't have. You don't get to talk to the owner and whatnot.
Yeah.
So having direct communication with not only my bosses but also the CEO of the company, it's just a really good culture over here. They allow you to work remotely, as you also work remotely, right?
I also do, and I also live a lot closer to the company than you do too. So I'm even more
Yeah.
fortunate. Yes.
So it's just a all around blessing to work here, and I'm just excited to see the growth of this company, and I'm going to do whatever my part is to help with growing it. And that is
Oh, that's
all.
great. No, I like the part where you said I'd like to give Website Depot a shout out, and I could feel my body just instantly trying to get the logo more into the shots. Like, I should set up further. We get some more of that. Well, that was great for us. Thank you for taking the time to come and do this today. That was a
No,
hoot.
thank you. It was such a good conversation,
It's a
Greg.
good
Thank you
time. It's
so
a good
much.
time. All right, yeah, and tell the rest of your team too, because we're gonna have to get through everyone eventually. So let them all know that we're doing this. So, all right. Well, thank you, Faraz, on behalf of Faraz and the rest of everyone else at Website Depot. My name's Greg Benevent. Take it easy. Have a good night.